Putin is in a panic over the possibility of a coup and being removed from power. There is a sense of panic in the Kremlin as they are running out of cards to keep playing the game, while US President Donald Trump is tightening the screws on Russia with new sanctions. This is reported by The Telegraph, which notes that the position of the Russian Federation is beginning to weaken. The fact that paranoia has intensified in the Kremlin is also evidenced by the recent accusation by Russia's FSB against Mikhail Khodorkovsky, who now lives in London, and 22 members of the Russian anti-war committee, alleging that they were preparing a coup d'etat. They have been charged with violent seizure of power and the creation of a terrorist organization. The grounds for these accusations were the declaration adopted in 2023 in Berlin by the Russian Anti-War Committee, as well as the creation of a platform for Russian democratic forces at the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. According to the security service, Khodorkovsky presents this platform to Western countries as a constituent assembly for a transitional period and as an alternative to the authorities of the Russian Federation. Experts describe such actions as a manifestation of Putin's new sense of vulnerability. Former US Ambassador to Ukraine John Herbst noted,
"The Kremlin is paranoid. Putin is looking for enemies to strengthen his regime."
According to the expert, Putin is being overly cautious. He says that the FSB's accusations indicate the Kremlin's fear regarding the transfer of power. After all, in the event of Putin's death, there is no obvious successor.
A prime minister appointed by Putin, courts and parliaments whose legitimacy is questionable. That is the reality of Russia.
Experts also note that the international legitimacy of the Russian opposition could become a key factor in the event of a sudden change of power. That is precisely why the Kremlin is trying to discredit and intimidate the anti-war committee. Since coming to power, Putin has systematically eliminated those who oppose him, writes The Telegraph, recalling Yevgeny Prigozhin, who tried to march on Moscow by force. He was defeated and his uprising failed.
This is not a military coup. This is a peaceful march for justice, for the people.
Putin is also afraid of his own generals, according to opposition figure Mikhail Khodorkovsky. The war has been going on for 3.5 years, yet the names of the so-called heroes are kept quiet.
The main reason, in my opinion, is that the Kremlin is pathologically afraid of popular military leaders, afraid that someone like Bonaparte will suddenly emerge from the ranks of the army and, following Prigozhin's example, turn the troops in a completely different direction.
Meanwhile, Russia's economy is beginning to collapse. The Ministry of Economic Development has warned the country is on the verge of recession. According to Thomas Keating from the Royal United Services Institute, Russia's economic weakness may push external players to take more active measures. Experts claim that China's leader Xi Jinping could stop the war and bring down the Russian Federation's economy if he wanted to. The main buyers of Russian oil, India and China, have already reduced their purchases in response to the US decision on sanctions. This could result in Putin's war machine losing its most crucial sources of income. Moreover, the war is affecting the population as well. Across the country, plumes of smoke rise above Russian oil refineries after attacks by Ukrainian drones. This leads to a sharp spike in gasoline prices and a fuel shortage.
Russian dictator Vladimir Putin is ready to accept the US concept for resolving the war in Ukraine and move forward on the proposed basis. This statement was made by the head of the aggressor country's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Sergei Lavrov. He noted that the parties agreed to take a break to consider the proposals. Lavrov added that the US allegedly did not respond directly to this proposal. According to media reports, the US President Donald Trump's peace plan may involve a managed freezing of the conflict. Trump had previously stated that both sides should stop hostilities along the front line. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky agreed to this.
"We need to stop where we are now. Trump is right. And then we can start talking about how to take steps toward a long-term peace."
In addition, during a conversation with journalists, Donald Trump stated that Russia's war against Ukraine could become the 9th conflict he manages to resolve. According to the American leader, he believes that this will happen. On October 16th, US President Donald Trump held a phone conversation with Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, after which he announced a new meeting with him in Budapest. It was noted that initially, the foreign ministers of the two countries, Sergei Lavrov and Marco Rubio, were supposed to meet. Soon after, Trump announced that he had cancelled the planned meeting with the Russian dictator. According to him, negotiations with Putin lead nowhere. At the same time, as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated, a ceasefire plan will be prepared within 7 to 10 days. However, according to him, it is unlikely that Putin will accept it. On the evening of October 26, drones attacked Moscow and the Moscow region. The mayor of the Russian capital, Sergei Sobyanin, reported on the repulsion of the attack in his Telegram channel. Amid the explosions, Domodedovo and Zhukovsky airports were closed. A photo of a mobile fire group near the Kremlin also appeared online. Some Telegram channels even reported that the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin was allegedly urgently evacuated from the capital. The attack on Moscow continued into the night. According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, it was the most massive attack in recent times. They reported that air defense forces allegedly shot down 193 UAVs in Russian regions, including 34 drones heading for Moscow. The day before, on October 26th, Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation, reported that military airfields in the Moscow region and other areas were under attack. Political analyst Kirill Sazonov also wrote in his Telegram channel about explosions in the Moscow region near the airfield where Tu-160, Tu-95 MS, and Tu-22 M3 bombers are based. According to him, drones also attacked airfields in the Kaluga region. And then, on the morning of October 27th, an unknown bright green object resembling a meteorite flew over Moscow. It streaked across the city and disappeared, leaving a bright trail behind. According to the Telegram channel MASH, most likely space debris or a piece of a satellite burned up in the atmosphere. Meanwhile, the attacked dam of the Belgorod reservoir continues to let water through at an intense rate. According to Telegram channels, the water poses a threat to the positions of Russian troops. As reported by the Telegram channel Ash of Belgorod, in the area of the village of Grafovka and downstream along the Seversky Donets, dugouts where Russian soldiers were located have been flooded. Units of the 128th, 116th, 68th, and 136th Brigades of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, which were operating in the Volchansk direction, have come under threat. US President Donald Trump responded to the statement by Russian dictator Vladimir Putin about the testing of the Burevestnik missile. Answering journalists' questions, he reminded Putin that the US has nuclear submarines stationed not far from Russia.
They know that we have a nuclear submarine, the largest in the world, right off their shores.
Trump noted that he is not playing games with Russia. In his opinion, Putin should be thinking about ending the war he started against Ukraine, not about testing missiles.
I believe that Putin shouldn't be talking about this. He should end the war. A war that was supposed to last a week is about to enter its 4th year. That's what he should be doing, not testing missiles.
On October 26th, Putin held a meeting with the head of the Russian General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, during which he boasted about the tests of the Burevestnik nuclear missile. Gerasimov reported to Putin about the tests of a nuclear-powered cruise missile with unlimited range, which took place on October 21st. The missile was allegedly in the air for about 15 hours and covered 14,000 kilometers. Russia had previously conducted multiple tests of the Burevestnik, all of which ended in failure. For example, in 2019, west of the city of Arkhangelsk, an explosion occurred during an attempt to lift a cruise missile from the seabed near the Russian Navy's missile test range. 5 Russian nuclear energy specialists were killed. Anatoly Krapchinsky, Deputy General Director of a company specializing in electronic warfare systems, notes that at least 13 tests of the Burevestnik nuclear missile have ended in failure. And on October 22nd, the Russians launched a Yars intercontinental ballistic missile in Kamchatka. According to the aggressor country, the Yars has a strike range of up to 12,000 kilometers.
Urban combat continues in Pokrovsk-Donetsk region, but the Russian occupiers do not have full control over any district. This was reported by the 7th Rapid Response Corps of the Air Assault Forces of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. Ukrainian defenders noted,
"Recently, our defense has been reinforced with new units, in particular assault troops, artillery, UAV crews, and other components of the defense forces. We are increasing the use of anti-aircraft drones and net launchers against enemy Mavics. Additionally, we are remotely mining the enemy's infiltration routes."
Special forces from the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine have been deployed to the Pokrovsky direction, reports war correspondent Andriy Saplienko. He claims that on the orders of Kirilo Budanov, active military intelligence units have already begun cooperating with the armed forces of Ukraine and have started carrying out combat missions. Saplienko writes that the special forces of the main intelligence directorate are focused on counter-sabotage operations and eliminating enemy groups that have managed to infiltrate directly into the city of Pokrovsk. The war correspondent also publishes a video showing a swarm of Ukrainian drones over Pokrovsk, which are controlling the skies. Media outlets, citing officers from 2 brigades, reported that there are at least 250 Russians in Pokrovsk. They are engaged in firefights in the city neighborhoods. At the same time, Ukrainian serviceman Stanislav Bunyatov said that, according to a captured occupier, Russian President Vladimir Putin has given the order to capture the city by mid-November. Let us recall that the chief of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces, Valery Gerasimov, reported to Putin about the so-called successes of the occupiers and paid special attention to Pokrovsk. The Kremlin is trying to convince the international community that 3,000 Ukrainians are encircled in order to put pressure on Kyiv and Washington. However, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky denied that Ukrainian troops were encircled in the areas of Kupiansk and Pokrovsk, TSN reports. In a phone interview given to TV host Ala Mazur, the head of state emphasized, "This is a complete lie, and not the first one." The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine reports that the situation in the Pokrovsk-Mirnorad agglomeration area and the Okheretyn sector of the Pokrovsk direction remains difficult. The enemy has numerical superiority and is intensifying its offensive efforts. Units of the armed forces and 2 components of Ukraine's defense forces continue to conduct defensive as well as search and strike and assault operations in certain sectors, inflicting significant losses on the enemy.
In total, there were 124 combat engagements over the past day. Over the past day, enemy losses amounted to 800 Russian invaders killed and wounded. Ukrainian soldiers also destroyed 2 tanks, 3 armored combat vehicles, 34 artillery systems, 1 multiple launch rocket system, 547 operational tactical level drones, and 138 units of automotive equipment belonging to the Russian occupiers.
In addition, Ukrainian fighters released a video showing a MiG-29 crew striking a checkpoint with hammer bombs where enemy forces were gathering in the north.